All right, guys. All right. It is time for the podcast. We're going to give it a minute to let some people tune in. And today we're talking about betting on yourself, the best bet that you can make. Now, we are going to start up in about 30 seconds to a minute. We're talking about betting on yourself. We're talking about the best bet that you can make. And we are going to we're going to get a little deeper today. I'm excited for this one. So, guys, as you tune in, drop me a comment. Tell me how your week is going for you so far. Tell me how training's been going. Tell me what other topics you'd like to hear more about on this podcast. And very quickly, we're going to get into it. Very good coach, very good information. Thank you. That means a lot. That's the goal here, delivering good information for free every single day, because that is something that I did not have when I was starting coaching. Answer my I don't know what you're asking me to answer. I haven't seen anything from you, but if I see something from you, then I'll do my best to answer it. But guys, we're going to do some Q&A as soon as the episode's over, but for now we are going to get into the show. So we're talking about betting on yourself, and we are going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the number one show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I am your host, Kenny Dussault, and today we are talking about betting on yourself. Now, a quick warning and apology in advance if I do sneeze or anything while we're on the show. I've been a little bit sick, woke up a little bit sick this morning. Hopefully, it's not going to disrupt the flow of anything, but just if you hear a noise, I wanted to apologize before we started. So we're talking about betting on yourself. And the reason that we're doing this is, if I'm totally honest, I was literally just listening to a podcast talking about betting on yourself. And this is a conversation that more of us need to have. You know, the podcast was two of my business mentors, Brian and Cole. So guys, if you watch this at all or listen to this at all, I appreciate you. And the big thing I need you guys to understand when it comes to this, what we're really getting into, the big thing I need you guys to understand is that this is a conversation that we all need to have. Because what does betting on yourself really mean? So what a lot of people think it means is they think it means show up every day and work hard. You know, oh, I'm going to be the best because I'm going to show up, I'm going to work hard. And if I show up and work hard, then that means that I'm doing everything I can. And you can make yourself basically just feel better by grinding. And I know I've gotten stuck in this mentality too, being more ready to just talk about how hard I'm working than to actually get productive results from the hard work that I'm doing. And this is where a lot of fighters, I find, go very wrong. You know, you guys show up to the gym every day, you work hard, you're the first one in the gym, the last one out of the gym, and you can give yourself that pat on the back to say, oh, you know, I'm the hardest worker here. So that means that, you know, I'm destined for greatness. And guys, just because you work hard, it doesn't mean that you're going to achieve anything great. And that's a lesson that I've been learning more and more every morning when I sit down and meditate. That's something that I'm thinking about a lot. Is I'm very happy with a lot of how 2023 has gone for me this year. But there's a lot of things that I know I could have done a lot better. And I showed up every single day. I worked very hard every single day. But there's a lot of days that I look back on where I'm like, man, I was more concentrated to just say that I worked 12 hours that day than I was to actually get something out of the 12 hours that I worked. Or, you know, like, yeah, I was more concentrated on trying to be a hard worker than I was on actually getting the results. And ultimately, that was a downfall of a lot more success that I could have seen so far this year. And so training hard, showing up to the gym every day, putting in that amount of effort, like, that's your comfort zone now. You know, we talk about how if you want to be great at something, you need to get out of your comfort zone. That now is your comfort zone. You're comfortable showing up to the gym every day. You're comfortable putting in the work. You're comfortable training hard. So continuing to just do that is only going to carry you so far, right? If you actually want to bet on yourself, if you actually want to achieve the higher level things that you talk about wanting to achieve, you need to do more. You need to go above and beyond. So a couple of the phrases that I want you to look out for when it comes to ways that you can go above and beyond are the following. Number one, I wish I could. Now, when it comes to something like that, what I've heard a lot of athletes, where I've heard a lot of athletes use that, one example is traveling to train. Oh, I wish I could, head down to this gym for a month and go train there. Okay, do it. Oh, but I don't have the money. Okay, get the money, then go do it. But people don't want to actually do the thing. They want to just talk about how they wish they could do the thing. Because let's say going down to that gym, traveling and training for a month is going to cost you $1,500. And right now you have no money. So you're like, man, I wish I could go travel that gym for a month and train, but I don't have any money. Instead of accepting the fact that I don't have the money to do that, so I'm not going to do it, figure out how to get yourself $1,500, how to save $1,500, how to borrow $1,500 from a family member, who to talk to that is going to be able to give you that money to go make that trip so that you can have that experience of traveling to that gym and training. Right? This is now the getting uncomfortable and the doing things that others aren't willing to do. This is now the betting on yourself. Owing someone $1,500 or spending that $1,500 of your own money to go travel to these high-level gyms and train with them for a month is not an easy thing to do, because $1,500 might be a lot of money. That might be something that makes you nervous. But the benefit that you're going to get from going to that gym, traveling, being around those higher level athletes and higher level training partners is going to be worth way more than the money that's stopping you from going to do it. I have an athlete recently that traveled down to Extreme Couture in Vegas, trained with Sean Strickland, trained with Brad Tavares, trained with a bunch of these other high level fighters. And it was a difficult thing for him to do. It cost him a lot of money. It was, not an easy trip to make. But when he came back, he was a different person. He came back and he said to me, he was like, man, I'm just like them. Like, there's no difference between me and any of these guys that I've been looking up to. Meanwhile, I've been telling him this for years, but being around them made him realize it, right? And since that day, he's been more dialed in with his training. He's been more dialed in with his nutrition. He's been more locked into every area of his training because he got to be around some of the best guys in the world. And he realized, oh, when I stepped into the ring with them sparring, it's like they didn't outclass me. Like, yeah, they maybe got me on a couple of moves and stuff like that, but like they're not worlds apart from where I'm at. If they can do this, so can I. And just having that realization by getting uncomfortable, spending that money, going to that gym, being around those guys made a massive difference in his career. And this is the type of thing I want to get across to you. That is betting on yourself. Meanwhile, this guy for the last 15, maybe not 15, last 10 years has been showing up to the gym every day, has been training, has been working hard, has been doing the right things. But by putting himself in that environment, training with those guys, sparring with those guys, being around those guys, now he looks at himself entirely differently. He's like, oh, I'm not some up and coming guy. It's like, I fucking belong at the top. I can hang with these guys. And as soon as he started seeing that in himself, that unlocked a new level of what he's doing in the training room back home. That is betting on yourself. So I wish I could. That is the first sentence, that first phrase that you need to start watching for with yourself. I wish I could. Anything that you're saying, oh, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that, but I can't because of blah, blah, blah. These are the things you've got to start figuring out answers to. Because going and making that trip, traveling to those gyms, being around those people is going to be worth way more than the amount of money that you're letting stop you from doing it. Another big one that I hear from a lot of athletes is, I wish I could fight full time. I wish I didn't have to work. Meanwhile, while you're sitting around saying you wish you could do it full time, there are other athletes that are figuring out how to do it full time right now. But you haven't even started looking or started thinking about what that process looks like. Because guys, the truth is, you don't have to wait until you're in the UFC to be a full-time fighter. And I posted something about this the other week and got a lot of shit for it, because immediately when I said in the reel, Stop relying on your shitty job to pay your bills. And I can't remember the exact way I said it, but basically stop relying on your shitty job to pay your bills and learn how to use social media and use the power of your name to start making money. And immediately I'm getting comments, oh, this is stupid. I have bills to pay. How am I supposed to pay my bills if I don't learn? And like, blah, 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 blah. But then I got other people, which this told me a lot about who all of you that commented on that post are. I got some people basically immediately telling me I'm an idiot because, how can I just like quit my job and not work and then I have bills to pay and blah, blah, blah. And look, I understand that. I'm not saying quit your job today. But then I had other people who responded to the same reel and said, how do I do it? Right? And that answer shows me a lot about who someone is as a person. If I'm telling you it's possible for you to fight full-time and not need a job, and your response is, you're stupid, that tells me you're not even open-minded enough to consider the fact that it's a possibility. And look, it's not going to be for everybody. It's not an easy thing to do. You're not going to be able to get there tomorrow. It's going to take a lot of work. But when you answer that same message and you respond to that same reel and you say, okay, how? Now, that shows me you're someone who's willing to figure out a solution. Instead of saying, I can't, you're saying, how do I do it? Right? So when people are sitting around saying, I wish I could make this my full-time career, there are other people sitting around saying, how do I make this my full-time career? And the ones who are saying, how do I make this my full-time career, are starting to figure out solutions. Because guys, the truth is, the way you make your sport your full-time career is simple. Figure out how much money you need to pay your bills every month. A lot of people, that's $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, maybe $3,000. And your bills, you're comfortably paying your bills, living month to month, and you're okay. I'm not saying buying fancy cars, eating out 3 times a week. I'm saying comfortably paying your bills. Let's say that's $2,500. Now, the way that you make your sport your full-time career is you figure out a way to make your sport pay you $2,500 a month. That's it. It breaks down to be that simple. Now, the way of actually getting there is obviously more complicated, and we're going to be talking a lot more about that on this podcast in the future. And I'm going to be opening a course about that in the new year, talking about how athletes can actually start doing that. But it is literally that simple. People think it's this absolutely impossible task, but the truth is, the way you make your sport your full-time career, I don't care if you're 18, figure out how much money you need to pay your bills, and then figure out how you can make your sport pay you that amount of money. As an example, let's say you need $2,000 a month to comfortably live. Something you can do is you can start hosting one-on-one private sessions where you're teaching, whether it's kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, anything like that. And you can sell $500 10 packs of training. So $500 for 10 sessions, $50 a session. That's a very, very, very reasonable rate. And in order to pay your $2,000 a month of bills, you need to sell 4 of those every month. See how it breaks down a lot simpler now? And yes, now obviously there's more intricacies on how do we sell 4 of those a month? What do you need to do? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to get into all of that because we'd be here all day. But when you actually break it down, it's a lot more simple than people make it out to be. It's not some crazy impossible task. You need to figure out how much money you need and then figure out how to make it. That's it. Now, I wish I could fight full-time is something I hear a lot of athletes say. And on that same note, there are a lot of other athletes out there asking, how do I put those systems together? How do I fight full-time? What can I do to be able to quit my job? And the ones who are asking that questions are the ones who are showing me I'm willing to bet on myself. I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to go above and beyond. Whereas other people basically say, oh, he's saying I should quit my job. Pfft, what a fucking idiot. And it shows a lot about who you are as a person. I had a lot of people tell me that this career wasn't possible. I remember specifically people very close to me telling me, if you pursue strength and conditioning and training professional athletes, you're going to work the front desk at a Good Life for the rest of your life and amount to nothing. That didn't feel good at the time, especially because I had no idea how I was going to make this career work. But over the last 3 years, I've 5x the size of my business. I've worked with athletes in 14 different countries around the world. I run a podcast that's been listened to multiple times in every continent in the world. And I train professional athletes worldwide. So I was asking the question, how do I make it happen, instead of just accepting the fact that it couldn't because other people told me it couldn't. I was willing to bet on myself. I was willing to move across the country. I was willing to live in the shithole apartments. I was willing to get my grocery bill down to $37 a week, eating lentils and rice 4 times a day because that's all I could afford for years, because I wanted to make this career work. That is betting on yourself. That is what actually creates the success that you want to have in the future. Now, the big thing too, and I want to come back to the other phrase that I was talking about, which is, anytime someone says, I can't. So you say that, as an example, oh, you can't be a fighter because there's no gym in your city. That's one thing I've heard a lot of athletes say. I want to pursue MMA, but I can't because there's no gym in my city. Meanwhile, there's somebody else in that same city that says, I want to be a fighter, so I'm going to figure out how I can afford to move to a different city that has a gym. Who do you think is going to be the one that's actually going to get there? The one who's making the move and the one who's making the decision to do the things required to see the success they want. You can use all the excuses in the book, and don't get me wrong, I understand moving far away from your city is difficult. I did it in 2017. I moved, I don't even know how far, but like most of the way across the country from my family, because that was the only gym that had openings for a strength and conditioning coach. I was getting paid $0.00 an hour for the first month that I worked there, and not livable wages for months after that. But nobody else had anything, and this gym had something. They were willing to take me. So I did it. That is betting on yourself. And that is what you need to learn how to do if you want to actually make your career work. If you have no gym in your city, if you have no access to a gym, if you don't have money to be able to pay for a gym membership, whatever the excuse you're giving yourself is, instead of accepting that as the reason you can't do it, you need to figure out how you can get around it and how you can actually make the dream work. So guys, that is it. That is all. I appreciate you all for tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. As always, if you got some value from this, I would love to know what it is. Make sure to shoot me a message across any of my social media platforms. The links on how to do that are going to be in the show notes below. I appreciate you all. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next episode.